Hi, welcome. The question for today's video is, what is the difference between a spy, a whistleblower, and a leaker? Are you seeking knowledge? Well, then you've come to the right place, Glen Maven Digital Publishing, where we upload videos about media, theory, culture, sociology, psychology, and a bunch of other stuff, etc. What is the difference between a spy, a whistleblower, and a leaker? Well, if you're going to ask a question that broad, you have to give a little bit of context. Are we asking about the social roles and obligations of these different types of social actors? Or are we asking about laws and violations of law? Well, we're doing a little bit of both, and we have to keep that distinction. We're also going to point out who is a journalist and how journalists interact with these different social actors, keeping in mind that as long as the journalist or media professional maintains the primary function of gathering information and disseminating it to the public and doesn't engage in spying or violating rules about maintaining confidentiality of corporate or government information, as long as the journalist merely receives the information, there is a liberty to publish the truth, and that does not violate the law. The First Amendment would never, or very rarely, almost never, prevent a media professional from publishing the truth, especially if it's verified and there was care taken in determining what type of information this is, whether it's documents or statements of people, interviews, and clarifying whether it's true or not true to the best of your ability and informing the public about that information. Lay down. Okay. Hi, this is Professor Blakey, and the topic of today's video is, what's the difference between a spy, a whistleblower, and a leaker? Well, if you ever ask a question like this, which is about identities and status in society, you always have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the question? Is the purpose of the question to figure out how things work, to apply a law, to make a judgment, a social judgment? In our case, we're trying to figure out how things work. And this is in the context of journalism. So before we answer the question of the day, we'll probably have to answer who is a spy and who is a journalist, and how those are very different. So who is a journalist, and who is a spy, and who is a whistleblower, and who is a leaker? A journalist is a person who in society is trying to gather information and disseminate it to the public. In the old eras of print and broadcast, it was pretty clear who was a journalist. Either you were affiliated with a major newspaper or television station, or you were not. Maybe you were a freelancer, maybe you were the nightly anchor for the news, but you were affiliated with some sort of news organization, and that was your job. You know, they want to like hide from the public. They don't want to tell what's happening, but then they do want to tell what's happening because they think that there's some sort of law violation. Rex is not interested. The person who takes the position of whistleblower or leaker, whether inside a corporation or a government entity, believes that there is something wrong in the way that the government or the corporate entity, let's just say the elites, the political economic actors, are doing. And so they feel that they're reporting law violation or giving evidence to the media because this should be public so that these law violations can be changed. For example, in the Edward Snowden case, he saw that the NSA had lied to Congress about surveilling or spying on the public. And so he gave NSA, National Security Administration documents to the media. And the media didn't solicit it, they didn't take part in collecting it, they didn't break into anywhere, no trespass or wiretapping. They received this information passively, and then because it was information that was important, they vetted it for security issues and then published it. So the media has not violated laws, and in fact, because the information was true, likely have a privilege under the First Amendment to publish things that are true. It would be difficult to say that the media couldn't publish things that were true in a free society when you have a Bill of Rights. So then let's look at this person. This person has violated some kind of law or rule in giving the information. So are they a whistleblower or are they a leaker? Well, in the context of understanding how these things work in social life, there's really no difference. It's just whether you approve of the person. If you disapprove, and there's more disapproval in the beginning, these whistleblowers and leakers, they suffer a lot by giving out information. Edward Snowden had to flee the country. Chelsea Manning served time in prison until she was pardoned. So difficult times for them by giving out this information. But you call them a whistleblower if you think they did the right thing, or a leaker if you think that they did the bad thing. So it's really more of a form of social legitimation or approval, disapproval. Was it a legitimate thing to do? Were they really following a higher law or a higher moral code by violating the rules that they did violate by giving the information? Whistleblowers are said to blow the whistle on power and speak truth to power. Leakers are someone who did something wrong and it just sounds bad, so you don't want to be a leaker. If you were looking at those two words in terms of law and whether a law applies, in the United States, there's a whole bunch of different laws that protect whistleblowers. Various different laws. There's some under the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act, and there's ones at work related to occupational hazards. There's a whole sort of patchwork of laws that protect whistleblowers from retaliation, that they shouldn't have to lose their job or be vilified or threatened. That's not to say that they sometimes don't. Often they do lose their jobs or their positions, or they do go to prison. And how do they end up on that side of things? Well, that's because sometimes people are prosecuted as spies. The Espionage Act in the United States is very, very old. It's 1917, from World War I era. And back then, it was perhaps easier to understand who was a spy. A spy is someone who interferes with the foreign relationships of the United States, looking from the perspective of US law. So the Espionage Act defines it as a crime to deliver information as a spy to something that you're trying to interfere with foreign relationships with foreign countries. So were these current whistleblowers that we were talking about, like Edward Snowden in the NSA case, or Chelsea Manning, which is a case, one of the several WikiLeaks cases, were these people spies or were they whistleblowers? And that can also be a difference of opinion because the law is not entirely clear, but throw in the new digital technology and it becomes even more confusing or more complicated and layered, shall we say, because now we're thinking merely by publishing them. If you give this internal military information to WikiLeaks and they put it on the internet, then is that giving it to foreign agents at the same time? Have you committed an act of espionage by publishing it to the entire world? You obviously have published it to foreign enemies, foreign spies, those that we don't agree with, even enemy combatants perhaps. Or is it just a publication? Because when a newspaper would publish the Pentagon Papers, which were later found, and this is in the 70s, the Pentagon Papers were leaked or by the whistleblower Daniel Ellsberg and published by the New York Times and the Washington Post. Was that spying at the time, or was he giving it to the newspaper and then the newspaper published it? So there was a step where the whistleblower gave it to the media and then the media published it to their audience, their newspaper circulation audience or their broadcast circulation audience. But now things that are published that have been leaked are published to the entire world all at once. So does that make all publications into acts of spying? I don't think so. It just complicates the question.